Yeah, g'day. Episode number 1. I thought I'd better just start off by explaining a little bit about who am I and how, and what we're all doing here watching this. So I'll roll the intro and we'll get into it. Yeah, g'day. I'm Brendan, an Australian tradesman currently living in Berlin. By the way, you might have to excuse my poor editing / filming / talking capabilities. I'm just learning all this, and hopefully somebody will get a bit of a laugh out of it or something. Yeah, bear in mind I'm learning, so he who makes no mistakes makes nothing. That's what my boss used to tell me. G'day, from Berlin Brandenburg Germany. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brendan, just a typical Aussie guy who happens to be a tradie living in Berlin, well, Brandenburg, the area surrounding Berlin. I apologise for my sunglasses because it's actually quite sunny and hot this morning. It's a Sunday morning, and you may ask yourself, what am I doing standing in the middle of a wheat field? Well, I'm only a few hundred metres away from my single bedroom apartment that I live in with my wife, or Frau, so they say in Deutsch, and 2 youngest children. And yeah, this is the difference between Brandenburg and Berlin. So you can see those buildings behind me, that's Berlin, and this green tree line surrounding this paddock, that's where the wall was. So you can see there's more buildings over here, which is Berlin. We live in a peninsula, you could describe it as, of the old DDR. So we're only a kilometre each way from the West Berlin border, where it was, and it creates sort of a bit of a strange living environment, which I don't know whether it's duplicated anywhere else in the world in other cities. I want to take a bit of a look at the things like this around Germany that probably people don't completely understand. I know I didn't until a lot later in life, about how this country was divided. You know, I always assumed when I was younger that east and west and the border went through the middle of Berlin, whereas in reality, Berlin, as a lot of you already know, sorry to bore you with some of the facts, Berlin was an island of west within a sea of the DDR, so it was completely surrounded by the Russians. And to get in and out of western Berlin, you had to travel through the DDR. The western part of Berlin was divided into 3 sectors: the French, the Americans and the Poms. And we can look at some of those sectors where they were. Some of the old signs are still up in other videos, but you may also notice that there's nobody else around. And this is a bit of a German cultural thing that I'll tell you about. It's about 9:30 on a Sunday morning, and Sundays for German people are sacred, so don't make any noise. It's all about sleeping in, waking up late, getting up, having a big breakfast, which usually consists of bread rolls, like everything the Germans eat, with a few different condiments, and a coffee, and peace. And you do that with your family. Because we're living in an apartment building, there's no noise to be made. You're not allowed to mow your lawn or hammer a nail into a piece of wood or anything like that outside. If you live in some of these duplexes and condos around us, then it's a different rule. You can make noise on a Sunday. But yeah, anyway, I thought I'd just show you around quickly what it's like here. when I say, oh yeah, I live in Berlin. Is this what you're thinking? It wasn't the first time I came here, I tell you. In 2018 we stayed in this apartment we're living in now, and about 3 o'clock in the morning I woke up to the sound of a baler out the back. And of course, just come from country areas, thinking, that sounds a shitload like a tractor with a baler. What's going on here? And of course in the morning when I got up and investigated, there was a freshly baled paddock like 20 metres away from the back of our apartment. So that was a bit of a shock to the system. Anyway, there you go. So another fun fact is the Jerry's are really into recycling, so you got to have the right thing in the right bin. It's not quite as bad here in Berlin as probably other parts of Germany in relation to conforming with putting the correct rubbish in the correct bin, but they do recycle a lot of their glass bottles, and most things are bought in glass bottles here. Plastic's not really favourable. So there's a Fant, which is a deposit you get back on each bottle you bring back to the supermarket, and you put it into like an ATM machine. It spits out a docket and you get 20 cents per bottle back. But for the ones that don't have a Fant or a deposit on them, wine bottles and juice bottles and things like that, they have these recycling bins in your suburb. So you can see here, green, brown, and at the end there, clear bottles. It's a good idea, but if you're living right there, it's pretty noisy when people are chucking their bottles in the bin. It wouldn't be real nice if you're trying to have a quiet beer on the lawn listening to a freight train full of bottles get rattled around out the front. But anyway, it's doing their thing for the environment, isn't it? Yeah, so I thought I lost a bit of footage. It's a bit of an incident with the computer. My old computer from Australia, the faithful old laptop, spun a bearing or something. My technical department, my youngest brother-in-law, Joey, he couldn't fix it. He's an IT man, so we got another computer, and then I put a bit too much weight on that or something. Anyway, broke a main leaf or something, and he had to fix that.
Joey is also in charge of performing all of my stunt work. And he has a really nice car that he even let me use once.
Genuine Deutsch auto trailer. So in the main time, I think I've lost a bit of footage and thought I'd just make up something for this first episode. I did make a first episode which Joey has rectified, but it's a bit long and boring. So anyway, I want to show you a bit more about Germany and the funny things the Jerrys do compared to the funny things us Aussies do. And just show you a few differences and what it's actually like here, not through the eyes of a young travel blogger or something, but through the eyes of a tradie that probably has a slightly different perspective or outlook on life, a sarcastic one, I suppose you could say. Yeah, I want to do a bit more outside and not just projects in the workshop, because my mum's going to be watching this too and she thinks that's a bit bloody boring, so Dad's probably into it. But anyway, we'll get out and about a bit and have a bit of a look. Climb this small hill behind me. It's called Blick, which means village view. It just so happens to be an old rubbish dump after World War II that's been beautified and turned into a park for people to walk their dogs. So let's climb up there this morning. I just climbed up this mountain of rubbish and just noticed how bloody unfit I am now. Getting old, I suppose, eh? So, like I was just saying, I live in Brandenburg, which is the area surrounding Berlin. So all those nice green tree open area spots, that's Brandenburg, with the odd little village like you might see down there. And anywhere you can see big high-rise buildings like there, That's another old dump over there that's been beautified a bit. And there, that's Berlin. So that's the difference between east and west. In the west they were stacked up on top of each other, and in the east there's a little bit more room. So over here in the foreground we have an industrial complex, and in the background that's the new Schönefeld airport. You know, the one that took them 10 or 15 years to build with their German efficiency. And if we pan around a bit more, that's the sewage farm. And as you can see, they're doing an expansion. They heard that I was coming to live here and they thought, I'm full of shit, they better do something about it. Over here, there's Berlin there. We have another rubbish dump, and that is the rubbish dump that was the original Berliner rubbish dump, and then when the wall went up it was in the east. So the Soviets took over that dump, and the Berliners had nowhere to dump their rubbish, which is how this large rubbish dump that I'm standing on now evolved. And apparently the Eastern Germans used to take large sums of money to have things that probably shouldn't be dumped in the ground on their side of the wall, while the Berliners kept their side clean. Anyway, that's enough mucking around trying to work out how to film an intro. This is all new to me, but anyway, I will try and bang something together for you. And the first project I think that we will probably start off with is just a small one. Hopefully it's something semi-interesting and enjoyable for you. So yeah, let's get into it. Have a look. So this morning I'm going to weld up an Auspuff. An Auspuff is an exhaust, which it really does seem quite funny when you go into a workshop and find 3 or 4 quite burly looking dirty German men standing around with a beer in their hand talking about their Auspuff. You think, what have I just walked into here? But anyway, and in this case it's actually a muffler, and it's off of my father-in-law's Smart, and it's a turbo diesel Smart. I'm sure we've all seen these little tiny funny looking cars. It was actually my wife's car when she moved to Australia, and she sold it to her father when she was living in Australia. So it stayed in the family. It's as old as the hills, it's turbo diesel, and they're a real pain in the bum to work on. I don't usually actually work on it. There is another mechanic that does things for the family when I'm not around, and I palm it off to him because they're just a nightmare to get into anything, to do anything. It's also done a crank angle sensor, so it needs a bit of a diagnostic computer to clear some codes once that's changed. But these things are basically, if you pulled the plastic body off and looked at it, it's basically a side-by-side with the engine in the rear. Yeah, they're a pretty cool little thing really to drive in the city, but yeah, they're a nightmare to work on. Anyway, this is the Auspuff. So you can see this corner here is rotting away, and this is just an outer skin over the actual muffler, which is crimped on. But for TIFF, for roadworthy, it doesn't look real good. So my father-in-law's tried to buy a brand new replacement one, and being such an old Smart and a turbo diesel, you can't buy an aftermarket one, which would be about 450 euros. You can only buy brand new, genuine, Smart muffler, which is about 1,250 euros, or 1,600, 1,700 Australian dollars. So he's found a reasonable second-hand one, and I'll just weld the corner up. Yeah, see how long that lasts. So let's get into it. I'll set up the time lapse. I've cut the outer lip off, the bit that was rusted, and you can see this cover here comes up over, wraps around and crimps over the top of the underside. So the underside was okay.
So I've got it all cleaned up, ready to go. I've made a patch to weld in there like that, which I'll do now, and then I'll clean it all up on the edges and grind her up, and hopefully it should be a invisible patch.
Just finished up that smart exhaust and just sprayed a little bit of paint for decorative reasons. I know it'll burn off on the end, and sat it in the sun near the door, and just noticed one of my neighbours driving past who's also been doing a bit of work on a smart lately, and he was checking out my house poof. I think I better move it away from the door. The old house poof, eh? There's a few funny words like that in Deutsch. Quite a few of them. I suppose we have a few funny Aussie ones as well. I'll do a bit of a comparison one episode maybe, but yeah, I try not to laugh at some of the Deutsch expressions. But anyway, sorry that episode's all over the place like a mad woman's shit. But like I say, I'm learning how to edit, and I also lost a bit of footage. Hopefully it was still enjoyable for you. And the intro, when I roll, that's a bit confusing because there's footage from Germany and Australia and things that are probably a year or 2 or 3 old. I just like to explain that I was working in Australia and living in Berlin at the same time, and doing a bit of a FIFO from Deutschland to Australia. And in the near future, I'm hoping to get back to Australia and do a bit of work there. So there will be some footage from Australia as well, and what I get up to there when I'm there. With the coming episodes, I've always got a few projects on the go between the Volvo workshop and my own little man cave. Usually have about 3 or 4 projects on the go at once. At the moment, I've got my wife's family's T4 Volkswagen bus cut in half, trying to weld that back together and make it look like a Volkswagen again, so it's safe and it passes its TÜV. That's been a pretty big ongoing project. There's over 200 hours in that so far. I'm helping a mate with a P544 Volvo humpback to get that restored and back on the road. That's a bit of a rough old sod, but anyway, that's probably some interesting things there for those who like to do a bit around the workshop. I've got a HZJ78 Tradie coming in for some rust repairs. Somebody heard I was a Toyota man, so thought they'll bring it in. To tell you the truth, I haven't done many rust repairs on Toyotas, being an Australian Toyota man, but anyway, we'll give it a crack. So in the next episode, I reckon we might have a bit of a look around Kreuzberg, which is a bit of a touristy area in the city. It's got a bit of the old original Berlin Wall there, so we'll have a look at that. It's a pretty interesting place, pretty touristy. You can buy drugs there, you can buy good Vietnamese food or whatever meal you want. Sit on the footpath and eat it. Very interesting people. It's worth a good look. I think workshop-wise, we're going to have a look at a 1965 Ford Transit Taunus bus, which is pre-Mark 1. I get it ready for TIFF, and it's going to France on holidays, which is about, I think it's about 3,000 or 4,000 kilometre round trip by the time he gets back with it. So we'll get that ready for TIFF, show you a bit about a 1965 Ford Transit Taunus. So until then, please subscribe, give us the old thumbs up, and remember to leave a comment. Tell me what you want to see or what you want to know. Ask plenty of questions and I'll try and sort you out. I'll become a millionaire on this YouTube, I reckon. The quicker you subscribe and like it, the quicker I can buy myself a new Toyota over here, because I'm stuck with this European crap. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in a week or 2. Depends how much the kids let me get to editing at night. Anyway, we'll catch you next time, eh? Cheers.